Welcome to another edition of the Heron Outlet. He is Austin Robillard. She is Alex Winley. I am Ian Heston. Guys, training camp is officially underway, and wow, did it start with some news. Some big news within the club on who's returning, some big news surrounding who might be coming in. So let's just jump right into it. The big news of the week, Josef Martinez, the former MLS MVP and really excellent striker for Atlanta United, reportedly on his way to South Florida after not being able to, after having some rough waters with Atlanta over the past year or so, dealt with an ACL injury and never really seemed to fit into the culture, wanted to get out, and now seemingly finding his way to Miami. Reports from both The Athletic and Tom Ogert of MLSsoccer.com reporting that Josef will be bought out by Atlanta United and a portion of his salary will be paid for by the Five Stripes to bring him to Miami. That would make him not a designated player, which is huge. That's a game changer in and of itself. So you're not only bringing in a top striker within MLS, you're doing it at a not designated player salary. Let's start with the player himself, Josef Martinez, who is, when he's on, one of the best strikers in the league, is MVP caliber. We saw that last year with Alejandro Pozuelo, right? A very similar situation. Guy with a disgruntled locker room, didn't have his MVP form, but when he got into a better locker room scenario in Miami, suddenly started to feel better and started to play like that of old. Are we seeing this Josef Martinez that could be that 2019 MVP as he makes his way, seemingly, reportedly, down to Miami?
Look, I think that Phil Neville, obviously with Pozuelo, has a great track record with past proven players in MLS, and Josef Martinez, younger than Alejandro Pozuelo, after the ACL injury, put in two good seasons, in my opinion, when you look at his goal contributions over the course of the games that he played, especially just in starts, because a lot of the time with what went on last year, you saw that he was getting subbed on later in games and not starting because of the whole locker room issues and things like that. For me, this guy, 100%, you do everything you can to get after him. And the fact that they're not getting him on a DP deal is outstanding. So him as a player and fitting into what Phil Neville can do, I mean, I see this just like you were saying, Ian, much like an Alejandro Pozuelo situation. If you throw him up top, you have so many different weapons at your disposal week in and week out. Every single team is going to be worrying about Josef Martinez because that's what they did in the past, and they'll continue to do that. He's still in his prime. As long as he can recover, keep on recovering well. Like I said, he's had a decent last 2 years. And even in those last 2 years, if you guys want to go check out our Substack that we just started, we alluded to this there. Even over those last two seasons after the ACL injury, he's still one of, I mean, if you throw those stats on Inter Miami, only I think Gonzalo Higuain is outscoring or out assisting him. I mean, I don't think any other player is putting up the same numbers that Josef Martinez is throughout that time. So to bring him in, hopefully get him to improve, put him through the Miami, the culture and everything like that they're trying to build down here with their nutrition and health and all of that kind of stuff, just to build him back even better, 100%. He could be extremely productive. And also, I think getting him off of turf is another huge thing.
Yeah, I wholly agree. I think there's a lot of concerns about his attitude and what happened up there in Atlanta with the spats he had with Pineda. But I think Phil Neville has shown that with Gonzalo Higuain last year that he's able to control tempers like that. He was not afraid to bench Higuain when he was out of form. So I don't think that'll be an issue. Also, Josef is coming to South Florida where there's a large Venezuelan population, and he'll probably be a lot more comfortable down here anyway. So culturally, the team fit, it'll just work. The locker room is also very Latin heavy. Phil Neville speaks Spanish. We heard it the other day, Ian, during the Phil Neville's press conference. It's quite good. So yeah, I don't think that will be an issue. Also, I want to run off some stats real quick on Josef Martinez. Guys, he's still pretty good. Obviously he didn't start in as much as he would have liked coming off an injury, but just looking at his stats, when it comes to the shot creating actions, assists, non-penalty goals, pass completions, he's still really good and able to contribute at a high level. So obviously he may not be the Josef of old, but with Campana there and even Corentin Jean, Nicolas Stefanelli, if Martinez is out injured or even Campana, there are options there that they can play a single striker system. If both Martinez and Campana are fit, I see maybe Neville rolling with the two striker system, but just the attacking options that Inter Miami has now, when Josef does sign, it gives them flexibility, especially with all the competitions they're going to be in: Leagues Cup, U.S. Open Cup, almost regular season, and the playoffs if they make it. Just having more bodies up there and more bodies in offense will be huge for Miami.
That's a really good point, Alex, because Phil did allude to this in his press conference on Monday to start training camp, that he said, quote, "We're in it to win it." And he meant that for every competition. He meant that for the MLS regular season. He meant that for Leagues Cup, and he meant that for the U.S. Open Cup. And he blatantly said it's because winning Leagues Cup gets you into CONCACAF Champions League. So, I mean, I can make all this moot. Look at Orlando City. They're going to be playing in CONCACAF Champions League this year. How'd they do it? They won the Open Cup. And for however easy that path was laid for them, they won't care. They'll be playing in Champions League. So I think that's an interesting take. Looking at his numbers, like you said, Alex, even in a diminished role, I think it's very impressive. Last year, in only didn't even reach 1,500 minutes, still scored 9 goals, right? and excuse me, the year before, in 1,600 minutes, had 12 goals. So I was looking at where that kind of production comes from, because that can be a super sub role, that could be a second striker role in terms of that much minutes and that much production. But not really. In fact, the closest thing that I found really within the hemisphere here is Andre Pierre Gignac of Tigres, who has a very similar clip in terms of goals to minutes ratio. And I think everybody on the continent would want him as a striker right now. So I for all the talk of his diminished return right now, I still don't know if I buy it. What I do buy is the fear of the locker room issues. And I want to touch on that for a sec, because Alex, you mentioned, what if he gets into a super sub role? Is he going to be accepting of that? Miami last year, when they couldn't turn to Higuain, Campana was hurt for a lot of the second half of the year. They didn't have Coco Jean still exists in some universe. We hope that he plays, right? But they didn't have that secondary striker option. Would you just go with a 2-striker up top option, or would you use Josef as a secondary spell for Campana, or a rotational thing between them? There's many options here. But how is that going to play into the mind of someone who thinks that they are the alpha male, the alpha striker all the time, and a guy that you want thinking that he's going to be that?
I don't think it'll be an issue, honestly, genuinely. I think his relationship with Atlanta has been so fractured that he just wants to leave. The front office, understandably, sure, they want to move him on, but that relationship is broken, and obviously he still feels like he can compete. And, the fact that he is in Miami and about to sign for the team, it shows that I wrote about it, and we all wrote about it in the Substack, but, he still wants to show the Atlanta front office that he can still do it. So I don't think, attitude will be an issue, because he's coming to Miami kind of with his tail between his legs, sort of humble, just wants to show that he still has it, even. He's only 29. Coming off an ACL injury is difficult, but, he's only 29. He would like to show Atlanta that he's still able to do so. Also, Ian, I want to touch on your point about the 2 strikers. Looking at Josef's advanced stats now, he is in the 95th percentile in key passes in the league, which is pretty great. And considering if you do play a 2-striker system, Josef can also be a facilitator as well. He's in the 93rd percentile of assists in the league too, but also, obviously his minutes are limited, so it's a small sample size, but still he can create passes into the final third. He's in the 75th percentile as a center forward, so he can create as well as score. So if Miami do play that 2-striker system, I'm sure Josef has no problem dropping off, being that late runner in behind Campana, who's more of the focal point, the system and just running off in that regard. So, yeah, and also I think this just plays into Phil Neville's hands in regards to depth. The U.S. Open Cup, Leagues Cup, they're going to be in a bunch of competitions this year. So, rotating, the more bodies, the better, like I said earlier. So, I don't think it'll be an issue. Yes, attitude, I don't know. I don't think it'll be as big of an issue as you're making it, because the locker room's going to be, I feel like they're going to open their arms to him. Like we spoke to Robbie Robinson the other day, talking about how, they're excited for Pizarro to come back. And that's pretty telling, considering the fact that, a year ago we saw him, him and Higuain get into spats. So I think just a change of scenery will do him good. And like I mentioned earlier, Neville's really good at just tempering down personalities like that. So I don't think it'll be an issue, but let's see how it goes.
I think more and more combination play up at the front is what's going to help this team. I think it's something that they lacked a lot of in the last 2 seasons under Phil Neville, and the offensive weapons that he added. And if you throw Josef into that, given the stats that he's put out in terms of being a quote unquote facilitator as a second striker, if you needed him to, with Campana and Pozuelo, you'll have that triangle in the middle up front. And then if you think about the wingers and them connecting on either side, having Campana or Josef, depending on where the ball is, running into the box, finding the positions that they're so good at doing, I think you create a really dynamic offense that Miami has lacked. It's not going to be that single guy up front that you have to rely on. I think Campana was asked to do a lot when he was playing in terms of hold-up play, and obviously when he comes down to after his injury and you look at Higuain, the whole entire team was on Higuain's back. Everything fell through Higuain, and now with a more versatile attack, with more weapons to spread out over the front of the pitch, I think Josef is one of those perfect players to play next to a guy like Campana, to play against Phil Neville type wingers, because he is able to contribute in multiple different ways, whether it's finding position in the box to receive a cross that was either on the ground or at the top of the box where he can get a shot in, or himself finding through balls to play the wingers, to play the crosses to see a Campana who's overlapping through the middle. There's so many different ways that they can approach this that I think Phil Neville is going to enjoy exploring throughout the season, and Josef could be a really, really key and vital part to a successful offense in Miami.
Just to touch on your point there, Austin, that last year Campana and Higuain combined for 27 of Inter Miami's goals. So just the fact that the sheer volume of the single reliant striker that they've had, being able to balance that between two people on the pitch at the same time might be a little more interesting. Training camp is just getting underway, guys. So we have so much more to talk about. It was really nice to get back out there. It felt a lot different than in years past, and we talked about it a little because this year really only 4 new faces so far that we've seen come back in, and that's if you include certain people that are coming in. And so a lot of the same, like coming in this year, was a lot of the same people. It felt like almost a little bit like a continuation of last year. And I compare that to where we were at this time last year, when everything was, 20 players in. Who's this guy? Who's it? What's that? Is that the guy that this looks like? And you were trying to figure out who was who. This year, it's a lot different. It has a lot more of almost like a college football team that was returning all of its starters, and you're like, oh, okay, like we're getting the band back together. Everybody's joking around and everybody's having fun, and it was very, very light. It was very, very brotherly, as opposed to there weren't a lot of the introductions. Guys were very good at communicating right from the start, and that just to me was first and foremost the biggest difference between day one last year and day one this year. And just as you make a couple of these changes, Phil talked about 2, maybe 3 more, that's not really going to change a lot. And just being here at day one felt a little bit different. And I figured we could just touch on that for a little bit.
Yeah, and it does feel different. I think a lot of the guys know each other from the last season, so they're not getting to know each other, in early 2022, where everyone was new and no one knew anyone. But now it feels very together, and they're all very focused and they all look very fit, and they have a shared goal in mind. So I think that'll be helpful for them heading into the season. We saw last year they didn't start the season off too well, and that's probably because of the newness. All of them, it was just chemistry and them getting to know each other, and eventually we saw them get it together later in the season and push for the playoffs. So it felt very new. Everyone felt very together. It was a very jovial atmosphere at the practice. Even Rodolfo Pizarro, even Robbie Robinson mentioned that they were happy to have him back and in training and in the locker room, and that they missed him even. So the mood does feel different. Obviously Gonzalo Higuain is not there, but still, there's no star per se, but the team has this feel to it. Like they're very together and they're ready to do something special this season. And I know a lot of people will say, well, they need a star DP to actually go somewhere. I don't think that's maybe how Chris Anderson will want to go anyway. Just regarding the roster building, if they can get messy later, I don't know, but they just feel really together, and it felt that way. Ian, we were there, and it felt like a family training camp almost. The guys all knew each other, and it went very smoothly. Even the new guys, Jake Lakavla, Benjamin Kreshki, I'm forgetting some names, but yeah, it just felt very natural and together, and the chemistry is there, and we're not going to have to see them struggle for the first 5 games of the season like we did last year.
That was going to be my exact point. Back then, there was no foundation of this team. It was, like you said, Ian, 20 players in, 20 players out, and it was it was just a disorganized group to begin the season. That's why you saw such a rough stretch in the first 5 games. That's why you saw a 5-1 beating in Austin. That's why you saw these types of things happen. And now, finally, we have a manager who doesn't have a crap ton of new players for the first time in club history. We have a manager who has a foundation that he himself has built going into a season, and this is the first time it's ever happened. And right now, this would be the moment to start off the year strong. And imagine where Miami would have been last year. They were fighting from, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it was either the second to last game or the last game where they actually had a chance to get a home playoff match. Imagine if they had just done a little bit better in the first 5 games to begin the season in 2022. Can you imagine where they would have been?
I'll make the argument that it cost them top 4. The first 5 games of last
100%.
year cost them top 4 because they went over 5, and that put them from that moment, from the first 5 games to the last 29 games, they were on pace with Montreal. So that first 5 games of the season last year completely cost them top 4.
And with a foundation going into 2023, with an idea of what you're going to do and what you're going to pursue throughout the year. And yes, this is still a Phil Neville side. We are going to see tactical switches from time to time, maybe from game to game until he figures things out. But at least he has an idea of what's going to be put out on day one. Given that he's actually seen game time from a majority of the folks that are on his roster, I think it can make a massive, massive difference. Everything that you guys spoke about with the training is extremely comforting to hear. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there, but I think for every fan or every analyst listening and you thinking about a Miami side who finally has a core group together, it's the first time they've ever had that in league history. And so I think it's extremely important for them to build off of that and start off the year strong. That should be the goal.
A couple of notes that we got from training. So DeAndre Yedlin's going to be in a different program, just coming back from the World Cup as he gets back to full league health as he goes in. Leo Campana dealing with a bit of an illness, expected to be back here later in the week in training. Jean Mota still nursing a bit of a groin injury as he heads into camp. Ian Frey coming back into the mix, which is nice. First action for him. We'll see after missing his entire rookie season with a torn ACL. Just a little bit of the news and notes from training, but other than that, a full squad, which is really great to see as we begin the year. A full squad, including a returning designated player, Rodolfo Pizarro, back from Monterrey in Mexico, and there were a couple weeks there where it was will he, won't he show up? He had said he was planning on going. There was rumors that they were trying to find suitors for him. But he's in training, and he's there. We weren't allowed to talk to him. We asked for him, but hoping to be able to ask him some questions and see if he's excited about his time here in Miami, if he plans on being here for the long haul. Phil did say, I found it of note in his press conference when asked about Rodolfo Pizarro, he mentioned that he looked at him as a brand new player. That he's coming back in like a brand new signing, everything that happened in the past, he's not considering, and he's looking at a guy that, this was the interesting part to me, has 1 year left on his deal. He's looking at him as a guy that has 1 year at Miami, and it's a prove-it year here or a prove-it year elsewhere. Those are my words at the end, not his, but he did mention that this is his quote-unquote last year at Inter Miami, and so I found that interesting. Whether that winds up being the case, whether he winds up moving before the season, I think is beneficial for everybody. That's my personal opinion. But if this is last hurrah, what does Rodolfo Pizarro returning mean for this squad?
I mean, I guess options. I don't know exactly what benefit this team has from him being there, because I look to, okay, Alejandro Pozuelo, if he is to come back, which I know we're going to get to later on in the pod. If he does come back, that's your key creator in this team, and that's kind of what Rodolfo Pizarro would, sought out to be. That's what you would want him to be. You think of a young player in Bryce Duke that you have who was coming in and out for Pozuelo and actually was playing before Pozuelo was there majority of the time, acting as a key creator. You think of Robert Taylor as an 8 at times when he was able to push up and help create from the midfield. Where does Pizarro fit into that mix, especially on a DP contract? I don't know. So if I'm Chris Henderson, if I'm Phil Neville, I'm still on this route to, okay, we need to find a way to basically offload him so we can either use this DP money or use any of the salary budget to fill in any gaps that we have going into day one. Or do they actually use him as a bench option? I don't know. I don't see him starting for Inter Miami in 2023. It's already, what is today's recording? January 12th. We're coming up on a preseason game in 9 days. I'm a little confused by this. I think the Josef news and the fact that he's not going to be a DP kind of plays into it a little bit, because you can afford to keep him on the roster, which is extremely interesting and not something that most of us had predicted. So I'm curious to see how this plays out. I genuinely have no answers, but if he is to stay on the roster, I just see this as another rotational piece to have another key creator in the middle of the park. I don't think, given all the wing play that we've seen from Phil Neville's wingers, Pizarro fits into that mold that, Alonso had him in 2020 playing as a left wing and cutting inside. I don't see that from him under Phil Neville, so I think he would play in the middle of the park, but there's just too many options there, in my opinion. And I think that there isn't a fit right now. And if they do find a way to do it, it might come at the expense of another young, talented player for Inter Miami. And I don't think I'd necessarily want to see that, for Pizarro.
Yeah, I'm going to quote what Phil Neville said about Pizarro here. I think we see him as a new player. In his first season, it didn't go as well as planned for him or the team. The year away was important for him. What we've seen is that he's got a different attitude and mindset. He loves the club and the city. Also, Neville mentioned that Pizarro maybe didn't vibe in previous Inter Miami locker rooms, and that this current iteration of the locker room suited his personality better. So all that tells me is that they didn't loan out Rodolfo Pizarro because maybe they didn't want Rodolfo Pizarro. They loaned him out because he didn't get along with Gonzalo Higuain, obviously. So
right.
The fact that
it's
Neville,
like one person that clearly is not involved in the locker room now.
Yeah. And now Gonzalo's gone, and seeing Neville's comments about Rodolfo saying, he's a new player and that we could see us using him, that just tells me if they can't find a team for him, that he's going to stay, especially with, like Austin said, the news about Josef not being a DP, that just lends even more credibility, if that's the word, that that Rodolfo can stay and maybe contribute. He probably won't start. Honestly, I think I have Bryce Duke, even Nicholas Stefanelli, who can play as a 10, above Pizarro in the depth chart. So, and maybe even Benjamin Kremeshki. I don't know. He's a talented young player, but this just shows me that Miami are trying to build a team with depth, even more so than they did last year. Like I said, the multiple competitions, they want to win a trophy. God forbid that, John Mata gets a yellow card or he's out with injury. We've seen back in 2021, Rodolfo play that center midfield role, maybe not as a distributor like Mata is, but more of a box-to-box late runner into the box against Atlanta specifically. I remember that he was required to play there because I think Gregory or Jay Chapman got suspended. I don't know, but he did a decent job. And I even asked Phil Neville about that, and he did mention that they did see Rodolfo at a time playing in that position. So honestly, I think based off of Phil Neville's comments and even Robbie Robinson, he mentioned that the collective group were happy to have Rodolfo back. That, to me, that says a lot, that there is a big chance that Rodolfo could stay. Like I said, especially with Josef, the news that he won't be a DP coming when he signs. Phil Neville's comments, Robbie saying that they're welcoming, they're happy to have him back, welcoming him back. Yeah, that just tells me that Rodolfo could stay. He could be a depth role player, maybe an occasional starter if, Mata or I don't know, whoever starts at the 10 can't go. I generally see him as a depth piece. I know people want him to go. Maybe they still move him on, but the Robbie's comments, Neville, the fact that Joseph's not a DP, it just, to me, it says that Rodolfo is probably staying. He'll probably be a bench player. Like you guys mentioned, it's his last year on his contract. It's do or die. Maybe, I don't know. And this is not reporting. Maybe they renew him. I don't know, but this is just like a last audition for him, essentially, to me. So yeah, we're gonna see how that goes. But yeah, the comments from Neville and Robinson were very telling for me.
I did notice, and I wanted to see who, when they walked off the field, who he was really hanging out with. The guy he was sitting next to when he was undoing his boots was Gregory. And I thought that was very telling. Whether who initiated that conversation, I don't know. I'm not getting into the gossip train here. I don't want to do that. But team dynamics are important in this conversation because I'm trying to figure out who this benefits and who gets the most out of this situation, or how can everybody get the most out of it. Does it benefit Pizarro to spend another year of his career here in Miami with seemingly no path forward? Or perhaps there is, and trying to find a way back in? Does it benefit Miami to just have another DP slot for another year? Because he was a DP last year, even as he played for Monterrey. Who benefits from this getting? And to me, I just keep going back to, I think that the best benefit for everybody is to find a way for Rodolfo Pizarro to move on. Now, if he is here, I think that everything that you guys have said is correct. I don't see a way for him to be the main guy starting, nor do I, looking at Campana and looking at Josef, if he necessarily fits that mold of what we would want there. I mean, it's almost 4 years since that DC United game when he was smiling and doing the Joker, right? So, or 4 seasons at least, 3 years. It feels like forever ago. I guess I look around the league and I try and see who has designated player spots that make sense, that Inter Miami could explore a trade for. I immediately look to the Galaxy. That makes a lot of sense. San Jose has an open DP slot. St. Louis City has an open DP slot and a ton of TAM and GAM. Just throwing names out there of ways that this could be beneficial for Rodolfo so that he could get into a situation that makes sense for him. And Miami could really just wipe themselves clean of this whole situation. That credit to all parties involved. They are making the most of it. They do not want to be answering these questions from us, from everybody in the media about Rodolfo Pizarro day in and day out. I get it. And for what it's worth, they have done a great job of saying he's welcome back into the team. Rodolfo has done a great job of putting his head down and just being a player on the squad. But as long as this exists, we're going to be talking about it. And as long as we don't really know what the situation is, we can only speculate. So until we have the clarity and the confidence of what it's going to be moving forward, the only thing we can continue to do, unfortunately, is talk about it and wonder, how is this going to go? Because we don't have those answers.
Yeah, anything to add, Austin? Or it's just, yeah, I don't know. It's just wild to think that, we all thought that, surely they'll find a suitor for Rodolfo or something, but now we're here. Like you said, there's a Vasco da Gama friendly next week, Saturday or Friday, and then the season starts on, February 25th. So time is ticking, and, the fact that they've integrated him into the team again, look at, I'll say Luciano Acosta from Cincinnati. I read a report that a team could be interested, or he's interested in going to Europe. He has basically, if I read this correctly, not showed up to training camp because he's looking for a move. They could have done the same with Pizarro, or just told them, hey, look, we're looking to move you on. Let's continue to train on your own. But the fact that they've really just integrated him into the team again, and like I said, Robbie's comments, Neville's comments, it could be them bluffing, but Neville was pretty firm on that. And usually if he's trying to skirt around the question, he will skirt around the question, but he was pretty firm on that. So yeah, it's just a wait and see mode. Yeah, I don't know, but whatever happens, Miami just needs to get their DP situation figured out, and let's see how that, ends up.
So are you guys comfortable with him being on the roster, or would you rather see him go?
As a depth piece, like Ian said, like not as the main guy, obviously, but like someone who can start for Mata if he's out, or whoever's a 10, he can start there, or maybe even on the wing. They're probably not going to be playing with wingers as much as they did last season. They're probably going to go with two up top, so maybe Pizarro can play as a 10 or one of the central midfielders. I don't know. I don't see him starting large chunks. He's not in the first choice starting 11 personally for me.
I mean this of no disrespect to Rodolfo Pizarro as a player or as his renewed attitude, that I believe them when they say he's a brand new player. I think it's best for Rodolfo Pizarro, and I think it's best for Inter Miami as a club if he moves on.
I just, when you talk about a depth rotational piece, Alex, he's making DP money, and I understand that's part of it, but I don't think I'd rather have that money opened up, whether it's the $620,000 that you get under the regular salary cap or actual DP money that the owners can go and get somebody else for. Maybe it's in June or July. I think I'd rather have that in those potential opportunities than keeping Rodolfo Pizarro on the roster, just because I don't know in what way he's going to contribute. There's so many questions surrounding it.
So
I don't disagree. I think
let me just jump in and throw a counter to that real fast, because I don't expect them to be making so many moves mid-season. I think what you get day one is going, for the most part, there may be one or two moves that happen throughout the season. So unless it's happening now, I just don't see a lot happening during the regular season that would make a difference with that money.
Why would you keep a rotational depth piece on the roster who's taking up a DP contract?
They kept it last year, and he wasn't even on the team.
But if you find a way to move him, there's no good reason to keep him on the roster when you go into a summer transfer window not knowing what's going to happen with players around the world going into the summer. Anything can happen, and any contract can open up for you. So if you have Rodolfo Pizarro on the roster, you're limiting your potential opportunity for somebody to come in and bolster this team. And I think that it's not worth to keep him on the roster. And again, I mean, no disrespect to Pizarro, but there are players ahead of him right now in his exact role. Multiple players. I'd rather have Pozuelo there if he is to re-sign, which, again, we're going to talk about. I'd rather have Bryce Duke there. If you want to talk about that 8 role, I actually really enjoyed watching Jean Mota be there in that box-to-box role. I liked seeing Robert Taylor in there in that box-to-box role if he had to. That's 4 people I just named ahead of him, and I think that if you are discussing a designated player and a designated player contract and limiting your opportunity to get someone else as time goes on throughout the season, it's just not worth it for a rotational piece. I just don't see how that's feasible.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think me saying that he's a depth piece is just based off of whether or not they can move him on. If they can move him on, then yes, I'm obviously all for it. But if if it's February 24th and it's roster compliance day and they still haven't found a team, that's how it is. That's how it's going to be for them. But so I'm not disagreeing. Like, if they can find a team and move them on, yeah, I agree. They should open that DP spot for I don't know, Busquets or Messi or whoever they're linked to. But if they cannot find a team, based off of Neville's comments and Robinson saying they're welcoming him back with open arms, I can just see him staying as a depth piece, and this is based off of whether or not they find a team for him to move on. So I don't disagree, but I think if they really cannot find a team, he's going to stay at Inter Miami and be that depth piece. Like Neville specifically, he was naming off players that he saw him competing with. Robert Taylor was one of them. I think he mentioned Bryce Duke and a couple of others that he said he's in direct competition with to get minutes. So yeah, I don't disagree, but I truly think if they just can't find a team, he's going to stay. I think he's just going to stay.
That's the thing, Austin. At the end of the day, you cannot, under any circumstance, have another Matheus Pellegrini situation. And so, if you cannot find a suitor, he's going to be on the team. They paid him last year to not be on the team. They'll pay him this year to be on the team, right? So if they cannot find someone to take him, he's on the team. I think it's as simple as that. Now, the question comes in, and let's transition, because I think that this is good, is how does that affect Pozuelo? Because Alejandro Pozuelo is still not signed. And I did ask Phil about this on Monday and say, is he still in the cards? And Miami does have the right to negotiate. He did say that they are still making progress on that. I think that they will get over the finish line on that. And I do think now with Josef coming in, you could see a situation where you buy Gregory down, you have Pozuelo, you have Pizarro, and you have Campana as your 3 DPs. And there you go, there you have it. Now, that brings up the question that you did, Austin, of what do you do in the summer if like Alex said, a Busquets comes around or a Messi comes around, or even, someone that isn't even on our radar right now. That's where your options are limited. But as we look at Pozuelo, I think that he needs to be the priority, and once he's in, needs to be treated like the priority, because I think you're going to learn a lot there. If he comes in and it's like, well, Pizarro and Pozuelo are going to be battling for playing time. Well, wait a minute. Hold on a sec. Like, I thought that we had a clear path here. And this is just me talking, like, that I thought that there is a clear hierarchy here of how this is looking, of who has been the performer of what Inter Miami is looking for. If that's understood, then all of a sudden, too, you get the added benefit of seeing how Pizarro reacts to that. Because let's remember how Higuain reacted to getting benched last year, too. We got the best of Higuain from that situation, right? And so, we all saw it with our own eyes. And so if Pizarro has a similar reckoning, then all of a sudden, oh, great, like this has become a fantastic situation. But if the same Pizarro comes out, well, now we've answered our questions. And I think that there can be a lot to be learned from that. So I do think that a lot of the Pizarro situation links itself naturally to Pozuelo and how the pieces surrounding it will react to it.
Is it possible, just after hearing everything you just said, and the reason why Pozuelo is not signed yet, is it possible, as we just talked about limiting opportunities with a full DP setup, is it possible that Chris Henderson in the front office are trying to negotiate with Pozuelo and his agent to bring him back as a non-DP? Do you think that that's on the cards right now because of the Pizarro situation? I think that is a possibility. I think it's tough to actually pitch that to Pozuelo and be like, hey, look, sorry, man, we're going to have to give you less money because we're kind of stuck right now. It just looks extremely crappy. But in order to protect their own, in order to protect Inter Miami as a whole and to keep your options available come summertime, because I think that is a key part of what might be going on. That's just personal. That has no reporting at all. That's just a personal feeling. I think that could be part of the discussions and why we haven't seen something cross the finish line just yet. And I think that's why the Josef news also came out in the fact that he's not going to be a DP. I think that that's another thing, too, that points me towards the fact that they might try to get these older, veteran, MLS-proven guys on less than DP deals in order to open their options for when the summer comes.
I'll just say based off based off what I've heard, I would be extremely, extremely surprised if Pozuelo comes back and is not a DP.
So then what possibly are they discussing?
I think it has to do with the Martinez deal. I think once Josef is over the line, they can turn their attention to Pozuelo. I think to that point,
you've had so much time for Pozuelo. So much.
Well, I think the Martinez deal really just complicates things, honestly. But to that point, Pozuelo did post a photo on his Instagram that looks very similar to Inter Miami's training facilities. He's not in Inter Miami clothes, but you can tell by the glass behind him, it looks like the training facilities. So he's clearly there. So I really do think, I don't know what press conference it was, but I think it was either Neville or Chris Henderson said it's going to be like a knock-on effect or a jigsaw puzzle where this deal gets done and then the rest can follow. I think they're really Pozuelo wants to be in Miami. I really just think that they're waiting on to close the Josef Martinez thing. That's done and dusted. He's non DP, and then Ian, correct me if I'm wrong. They have to buy down Gregory for the DP thing, and then once that's whatever they do, once that's done, we'll go ahead and announce Pozuelo. So I think it'll just be a knock-on effect. Josef's done, then buy down Gregory, Pozuelo's in, and whatever happens to Pizarro, whether he's still here or this time on, I think that's what I think is going to happen. And you maybe have some other information, but yeah, I just think it's a knock-on effect. This guy gets done, then they can go here, and then that's how it's probably going to end up.
Yeah, just real fast on the Gregory stuff. A lot has been made about nothing on this because Gregory can easily be bought down. I think it comes down to $232,500 in CAM that they have to use. That's not a terrible amount. I mean, it is something, but it's well within the capability of what they could be able to do. So Gregory will not be a designated player. He makes designated player money right now because of the structure of a contract. And I know that Taylor Twellman was out there with saying that he is, because they're going by letter of the law right now, he is a designated player because he makes over $612,500, but he will not be when the mechanisms are used when rosters come in. So I think that just when we understand that, and a lot of the confusion of who's our DPs and who are Inter Miami's DPs and what's going on, those questions that we get asked all the time, Gregory, technically DP today, will not be when the start of the season comes around. So that means that you're fitting 4 players in Campana, who will be a young designated player, Pozuelo, Pizarro, and Josef, who reportedly will not be a designated player, into 3 spots, and now you have your 3 designated players. That's the simplest way to put it. To your point, Austin, about what's taking so long, this is going to sound a little tongue-in-cheek, but when you get to a certain point in your career, you don't always want to go through, like when you have reached a status of what you have, you don't always have to show up to training camp on day one. I'm not saying that this is a situation like that, but the transfer window is open right now, so he can explore his options. And so if he's not in a rush, if the team isn't in a rush, and he wants to see if maybe there's something in Europe that he could go for, I mean, more power to him. The player is not under contract right now. So I don't think that the fact that it hasn't been done as of right now is any indication that it won't get done or won't get done quickly once everybody sits down in a room together.
Mind you, I want to remind you guys that the roster compliance date is literally the day before the season starts. So Miami do have plenty, like a month's time to get all this sorted, so they don't go through a Matuidi part 2. So yeah, I just think it'll, like Ian said, it'll take a little bit of time, but they do have plenty of time to get all this sorted.
And this is just week 1 of training camp, right? I mean, we've got 7 more to go until February 25th, or 6 more to go until February 25th against Montreal. So plenty of time. Like you said, this time next week, we'll be talking about heading in to the first preseason game for Inter Miami as they will take on Vasco da Gama. Guys, I want to touch on some of the transfers that have happened, some of the moves that Inter Miami has been able to make coming in over the past couple of days. Franco Negri coming over from the Argentina Premier Division in Godoy Cruz, a left back with a lot of promise, a lot of upside. Alex, you wrote a great scouting report on him, so I want to turn to you first. This looks to be a piece that Inter Miami had a position of need at, and really was looking to find who could be that. We all remember last year how Chris McVeigh really played out of position the entire year, being forced into the left back role. And so what could a Franco Negri bring to Miami and to that position?
Well, he's an extraordinarily attacking fullback. I spoke to Mati Romero. He's a writer who covers Godoy Cruz in Argentina, and he basically said, I know this is going to sound terrible, but he's a defender, but he doesn't defend. He's an attacking fullback through and through. He likes to go forward. He likes to get on the wing. He likes to combine and get into the offense. He's a fullback that, yeah, he loves to get forward. And I think that lends credibility. Like I said earlier, a domino effect. Josef comes, 2-striker system, whether that be with a flat back 4 or a back 3. Franco Negri is the perfect wing back, and then you pair him with a guy like Yedlin on the other side. They're 2 very quick attacking fullbacks. That Negri's probably a little bit more technical on the ball in regards to passes into the final third, key passes. His crossing may not be as accurate as maybe you'd like, but he's an attacking fullback through and through. He'll give it his all on the field. I didn't see his transfer. No, he was a free agent, right? But I think they got him for a good deal as well. And reading his statement to the press release, he's super excited to be here. And Miami are getting a really good attacking fullback that can play as a wing back, that can play as a flat fullback in a flat back 4. He's very attacking. He loves to go forward. Defending, like I said, it may be a little bit iffy, but he does have the recovery pace similar to Yedlin to get back if needed. There have been so many times last season that we saw Miami, in transition struggle with that. Maybe Ryan Saylor or McVay, maybe they're not the quickest center back. So if, let's say, Saylor or McVay or Ian Frey, when he gets healthy, if they play as that left-sided center back, Franco Negri has the pace to get their back. So a lot of high upside in Negri, great attacking fullback, defending. It remains to be seen, but Miami has a versatile player that can play as a left midfielder as well as a left winger. So yeah, just a ton of upside. Defending a little iffy, but like I said, once he gets into the groove, we'll really see what he can do. And yeah, another steal for Chris Henderson.
One thing I want to point out about this, after I read your article, Alex, I mean, you could put Yedlin's name at the top of it, and I would have read the same thing. Like, it's what it seemed like to me. If I saw no name, I would have been thinking you were talking about DeAndre Yedlin for the most part. But when thinking about, how this correlates going into the next season versus what we had last year, how many times as a group did we discuss and even ask Phil Neville about the imbalance in attack between the right and the left side? How many times did we talk about the partnerships between the right side of the pitch and the left side of the pitch? And I mean, it was due to the fact that Christopher McVay is a natural center back and was playing out of position for a long part of the year. I think probably 90% of the year, and he played almost every single minute. So when you think about adding a guy like Negri, you think of a more balanced attack because of what he can bring on the attacking front. Now, I think, in my opinion, if Negri and Yedlin are on the pitch together, you're seeing a back five or a back three, whatever you want to call it, with them two at wing back, because it just makes the most sense to have them go forward and provide a little bit of cover and have them able to come back. I would like to say that Negri and Yedlin would just help balance the attack on both sides of the pitch. And I don't think we had a lot of that last season. Yedlin did a lot of the heavy lifting, as we saw a very fluid formation. And when Yedlin would go forward, you would see a dynamic shift of somebody that was on the left side come back and help defend. But McVay and Saylor, or whoever it was, Mabika even, on that side, were getting beat a lot of the time in transition. I mean, there were a couple goals that you can think of right off the top of your head where McVay was getting beaten behind. So I think that this helps a lot. And I think that going to a back three, back five, whatever you want to call it, with Negri and Yedlin on opposite sides, gives a little bit more coverage, a little bit more numbers behind, and the ability to go forward and have a more balanced attack. I see it as a very profitable situation for Miami.
I'm cool with the back four with this. So I'm interested. I mean, I get the argument naturally of a back five because you have two, speedy wing backs going up and down. But with a back four, with them, I know that you're losing stuff out wide, but that's what Miami wants to give up. And I look at, having Gregory and Jean Mota almost as half backs, kind of, that like in front, and then almost the two center backs be like sweeper backs. That could work for me in this situation, considering they're two of the best defensive midfielders in MLS, statistically and in practice. So I guess I still like your principles of the 4-4 or whatever. If it winds up being a 4-4-2, that diamond looked really good last year. And even if it's in like the blocks, if it's like think of everything in terms of a block, like two center backs, two wing backs, two defensive midfielders, two attacking midfielders, two strikers. Like, even if you played that, I know it sounds a little bit weird, but in reality, it kind of works for me. I guess I'm not, but again, this goes back to what we noticed with Phil last year, how he was able to switch those formations between the back five and the back four, and now, the ability to make those moves mid game without having to make substitutions is what an added element will be. That you could potentially just make one move now. Let's say, you pull off Bryce Duke and put on an added CDM, and now you have five at the back. Like, it can be that simple to switch formations. That's where a lot of this, I think, benefits you.
Even now, I'm doodling here on my envelope. Negri, Neville, if he wants to, he can implement that positional play thing that Guardiola does, where that one of the fullbacks slot into central midfield to make up numbers. Negri, if you watch clips of him, he does have a really good ball skills, and I don't know if he'll play as pure Pep fullback in that regard, but that is an option. He can slide into midfield while one of the central midfielders gets up if they're pushing for a late goal, and then even still, you could have a back three of a center back, two center backs, and Yedlin tucking in as a sort of a Kyle Walker role if Neville really wanted to push the tactics board. Maybe it's just me playing FIFA in my head, but yeah, that is also an option. So, like I said, like you guys said, it's just about fluidity and versatility for this. And yeah, I'm excited to see how Neville gets on to it. Throughout his years, he has tactically evolved and gotten better. So, yeah, let's see how that goes.
But as you alluded to, Alex, in your piece, Miami's not really gone into a season where they've had someone they can look to at left back and be like, yep, that could be the guy. And I think for the first time, okay, let's go back to 2020. What was it? Ben Sweat. 2021 was, oh man, my Inter Miami trivia.
Oh wow,
Who was 2021?
Jobin Jones.
Jobin Jones is another one.
Kieran
2022.
Gibbs did come in though. Yeah.
Gibbs came in, but again, there were so many questions surrounding that as well because of the injury history and him literally not playing at West Brom before coming.
Yeah.
And then I looked at last season. You had no idea what was going to happen, and then it ended up being Chris McVeigh, and we didn't see that at all.
We didn't say Breck
now
Shea,
you
so
have
the internet's
Negri.
gonna hate us. We didn't say Breck Shea, so the internet's going to hate us.
Oh gosh. Well,
Breck's great, but he was also very injured a lot of the time.
There was always a question mark around Breck Shea. There was never a real starting left back on this roster, and I think with Negri, I'm not going to say 100% he's a starter from day one throughout the course of the season because we don't know yet how it translates to MLS, but there is a lot of potential there, and I think it's the most potential we've seen in a left back signing from Miami since their inception.
That was going to be my question to you guys. There's a tendency to get very excited when you bring in a new player and immediately crown them. Are we necessarily doing that? Is there another option? Is Negri the day one starter right now? What could be, if not Negri, who?
Yeah, for me, yes. I think Kieran Gibbs he's been decent, but just always injured. And even Noah Allen, he could push for the starting spot if he plays well in preseason. But the fact that they went out and got Negri just shows that they probably have no confidence in Kieran Gibbs, or they feel like Noah Allen isn't prepared enough to get the full-time job yet. So I think this is like a stopgap until Allen is ready, if Gibbs is healthy. But yeah, for me, yes, day one starter.
Even if I agree. I think it's possible he's a day one starter, but even if Phil Neville finds no comfortability in any of those options that you just mentioned, Alex, Chris McVeigh is not a bad option.
So one more signing that that Inter Miami has made, Nicholas Stefanelli coming in from Sweden. You can check out all of the scouting report on him as well. Alex did a great job speaking with a reporter over there as well, breaking down the newest winger, Nicholas Stefanelli. But guys, I want to close the show with a returner from Inter Miami's own ranks, Robbie Robinson, coming off that really, really gnarly leg injury midway through. I think it was in July of last year. Underwent surgery. He actually said it was the first surgery he's ever had. So went through a very, very tough recovery. It took about 2 months longer than originally planned. With some of that having to do with the offseason. But he's back now, says that he's feeling healthy. Said we got to talk to him earlier this week, said that he's taking a lot more time to focus on his nutrition, on his doing yoga, he had said, doing a lot more recovery than he had been doing, and really wanting to be a professional footballer, as he said, and take that stuff more seriously. He's a former number 1 overall pick. He was a former Herman Award trophy winner. I know we always bring that up, but that's the equivalent of the Heisman in college soccer. And he came in with a lot of hope, but has struggled to adapt, has struggled to stay healthy. So now in year 4 of the Robbie Robinson, we come in and what is the feeling around him? What does he need to do to show his teammates, to show his coaches, to show the fans, a lot of which, have sort of, given up, for lack of a better term, or at least run out of patience. Keep hearing about this guy and wondering whenever it's going to come to fruition.
Sorry, I was having mic issues there. I clicked it like 20 times. The thing is with Robbie is we still don't know. Like, we have seen glimpses, we've seen the flashes, but it always comes down to this injury thing. And I think that the benefit of this for Inter Miami is that you have a guy with a lot of potential ability, who you have on a contract that literally does not affect you at all up until this point. I mean, that is the biggest part of this. I mean, even bringing in Stefanelli and all the other wingers and those types of attackers that Phil Neville has, having Robbie Robinson as a depth piece is the exact opposite of why I was so keen on talking about Pizarro and talking about getting him offloaded. His contract matters, Robbie's doesn't. So if you end up needing a depth rotational piece down the line for a winger, for an attacker like Robbie, like Laster, like Stefanelli, like Robert Taylor, like Emerson, like all these different guys, you have that at your disposal, and it's not really affecting you in any way at all. So I think, you have that ability. You've seen that he has produced for you a couple of times, I would say, and sometimes in some minutes that he's played. Even at times in the beginning of last year, the amount of times Phil Neville was asked about Robbie, and it was those straightforward answers, trying to keep him motivated and things like that. I think you'll see more of that going into this year. To be hard-nosed, to tell him that, look, you need to prove yourself and all these kinds of things. For me, the key point of this, again, is having him on a contract that literally doesn't affect you at all. And if you end up unlocking that potential ability, it's obviously a huge plus. But I think there's even possible trade potential for Robbie Robinson as well throughout the season. Maybe as he ends the deal, I don't know if it ends this year or the end of next year. I think this year. I think it's a 4-year deal after the draft, so I think it would end after this year. So maybe if you can find a trade partner to offload that, so you don't have to just lose him for nothing, to get some allocation money to help balance and mitigate anything else you have to do roster structure wise, go ahead and do that. But if he gets some minutes and he has some production, that's the most you can ask for, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think Robbie, just talking to him, he looks extremely motivated. He looks fit, standing there. We saw that giant scar going down the right side of his outside leg. It was a gnarly scar, but he got engaged over the off season. He seems ready, fit. He, like Ian said, he spoke about eating properly, doing yoga, loosening up, his muscles, just staying injury free. Austin, to your point, we also spoke to Phil Neville about it, or Robbie and Phil, about his minutes. Robbie said it himself that they're not going to push him. They're going to slowly ease him back into the team in regard to playing time. Robbie even said he hasn't even started shooting yet post injury, so he's just doing some light ball work and fitness. So yeah, for Robbie, for him, I think in order for it to be a successful season for him, I think it's just to make an impact on games. We've seen that he's able to score. He has the pace. I don't know if it'll be a little bit reduced due to the injury, but he's a Herman Trophy Award winner, which is given to the best college soccer player in the nation. Like, he's not any slouch. He's good, and we've seen it on his day. It's just staying consistent. And talking to Robbie the other day, he looks like he wants to be consistent. He looks fit. He's ready. He rolled up his shorts. He was all ready to go. So yeah, I think for Robbie, he just needs to keep consistent, contribute. There's going to be a lot of competition in all of the places that he plays across the front line, so he's not going to have to, play a lot, but he'll have competition, and that's what you want in a team, to build competition so the players get better. So Robbie wants to succeed, and I think that he'll be able to do so if they bring him back into the fold slowly and give him time to recover and not really push him, and so he's not picking up those little injuries anymore. So yeah, he can be successful, but I think we can all agree it's really up to Robbie to make that happen.
You had mentioned that he got engaged. It was a winter of love for Inter Miami. Robbie Robinson got engaged. Drake Callender got engaged. DeAndre Yedlin got married. So a lot of love is in the air around the pink and black. As it pertains to Robbie, I mean, his rookie year only got a little more than 400 minutes as he started to get used to being a professionaler. The second year was around 1,300 minutes. He scored the 4 goals, but I would think it would be a little disappointing, he would say. Last year with the injuries, only about 400 minutes. We haven't really ever seen him get up to even like a super sub level of production. And so I guess thinking going into this year that will be his primary role, at least to start, that his role will be as a super sub in those final minutes to be able to have that last 10-minute spurt that Phil Neville loves. What does production look like to you? Is it a handful of goals? Does he have to get to double digits? Is it a minutes cap? When we're looking at his production, do we define it through numbers or do we define it through the eye test?
I don't know. I kind of see him in that Indiana Vasilov role, coming off the bench until he gets fully fit, just coming off, using his pace to wreak havoc on the back line and score some late goals until he gets fully healthy. But yeah, for me, I won't judge him on numbers. I'll do more of an eye test. If he comes on and wreaks havoc and he's making a wreck of the opposition back line and getting into good positions or assisting and whatnot. Yeah, that's successful. I won't get him to like Josef levels of, he has to score 10 plus goals to be successful type, but, yeah, just come on to super sub role maybe until he gets fit and wreak havoc that way.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think it's just eye test. I don't think, we don't know the minutes he's going to get. I don't want to cap him at any number and try and get him to exceed some amount. I think it's honestly, if he can come in and have an impact to help Miami either find ways to win game or stretch a game out, whatever you need to do in order to gain any kind of points when he comes on the pitch and he doesn't have necessarily a negative impact, then I think that would be a good season for Robbie up until October, November, whenever it is.
I only bring that up because in the press conference with him, he was asked if he had a number and he sort of smirked and didn't want to tell us what it is. So I think in his head, perhaps he has a bar that he wants to set for this year. Wow, guys, what a great start to the 2023 season. We got through a lot here. Much more to come as we will have a ton of coverage for you here at the Heron Outlet in the 2023 season. Don't forget also this upcoming weekend, River Plate coming to Drive Pink Stadium to take on Millonarios at Saturday night, the return of LGP now playing for River Plate. So that'll be fun to see LGP back in South Florida if you find your way to that game. Wish him the best, a former Heron, always a Heron, right? And always make sure you follow us on our latest Substack, the Heron Outlet at substack.com or .substack.com, the heronoutlet.substack.com. You can subscribe to our newsletter, get it all in your inbox, sign up for our premium content, plenty more scouting reports, league news, all that coming right to your email. You can follow us at always on Instagram, on Twitter, at the YouTube channel. Follow us, subscribe, like, comment, rate, review. Woo! We got through it all, guys, and plenty more to come this season here at the Heron Outlet. He is Austin Robillard. She is Alex Whitley. For our producer, Andres, I am Ian Hest. We'll see you back here this time next week.